Yeah, let me show you how this stuff has to work if you want to get a consistent thing. You better be really precise about it. As you can see, I don't have my 5mm yet. I got to scooch it back just a bit there. Okay. Now we get that right to 5. Okay. And then what you want to do is you want to hang the heat shrink on there so that it's right at that point. Okay, do you see where that is? Okay. If you order from MDPCX, he'll show you a guide, gives you some clues. Okay, and you heat it, go back and forth, get it to go, get it to grab. Okay, it's grabbed, and then while it's hot, put that in there. You want the part that's crimped to go to the tab, so the crimping part up, think of this as up, crimp up. Okay, I only work one wire at a time, and then that's the result. Okay, as you can see, it doesn't look like the others because it's thicker because of double wires and whatnot, but it's pretty close. So I'm just going to keep working at it, and then I'll look back over it and change anything that's not quite right. Okay, this is the orientation. The plug goes into the power supply. Even though it's 2 plugs, it goes like this. So for whatever reason, the split wires that they used, of course, they have to be spread as far as possible from one end to the other, right? But that's what I came up with. Luckily, it's nice black wires, so it doesn't look bad, you know. But, okay, we'll just keep forging ahead. Okay, for you guys that have never used these kind of tools and don't know about it, this is a genuine Molex demolexing tool for these kind of ATX pins. You can see what it looks like. Okay, this is better. I have 3 others like this. I have 3 tools like this. This is the best one I've ever used. It works every time. It's very nice. So it does make a difference to get a good one. This one comes from Nils, MDPC-X.com, which has got the best sleeving. And then what you do, okay, is you get it on either side of the metal pin, okay, and then you push in. You'll feel it push the little tabs back, and out it comes. If you've ever used a crappy one of these that doesn't work right, you will be working really hard to get that out. You saw how easy that was. Okay, so it really makes a difference to get the right tool. Since we're getting into this, I thought I'd show you what I've been doing. Okay, is I take a single wire. This is a modular power supply, so I can take a single wire. Clamp it down to my bench, try to get it as straight as I can. My camera is really pissing me off today. Okay, then what I do is I take the sleeve and I go back 5mm. Okay, if you don't have a real good eye and you can't consistently find 5mm by eye, you best do some measuring. Then you go to this end and you find 5mm and you hold it with your fingers, and very best you can, or you could use a little piece of white tape or whatever, and then you clip it and you melt it, and then you slip it over, and then you do the heat shrink like I just showed you a second ago. And now that's the way I'm doing it. Obviously there's different ways to go about it, but since I have a little trouble with this process, trying to control it and get everything consistent, I'm doing everything I can think of to make it mechanical, make a mechanical process so that there's no variance. But you know, even with this, I'm still finding slight variances. Now, obviously, this sleeve is going to expand and be a little different. But what I've been finding just from working with it is that if I just pull it lightly, not too hard, I'm getting real close to what I need. Okay, now once I've got my 5mm, which I'm using my digital calipers to determine, you'll notice it bulges out and it's baggy. Okay, what you do is you heat it up and you pinch it. Okay, see how that made it tighten up? It's a little trick to get it to go tight there. Okay, then you slip over a piece of this here so that it hangs right on that little hook there. Heat it up. When you're moving it around, try your best not to have it shake around or loose around. Now see how it came right to that little metal bit? That's what you want. See that little tiny thing there? I should have about 5 mil. Okay. So that's what I'm working on every single time I try and do it. Then I reverse it. Okay, you can see it looks like it's too far away, right? But it's not, because you're going to pull it out like this. You wait for this to cool, okay, or else you'll just pull it right out. Okay, once it's cooled, you grab it around the heat shrink so it doesn't come loose, and you just pull. Okay, and you'll see that this actually goes too far. But what I've been finding is that if I pull it so tight that it frickin' is like tight as tight, then when I bend my cables, it's putting too much strain on the heat shrink sleeving connection, and they've been popping out, and I don't want that. So even though this makes a very nice looking tight cable that's nice and stiff, which is what you really want, I'm finding that I'm overdoing it. So what I do is I just pull it to 5, put it over heat shrink. Okay, I want to use both hands for this and stuff, so just gotta turn this on. Okay, I've been chugging along this sleeving phase of the Gemini project, and what you got to do when you're sheathing black wires with white is you got to use some white electrical tape. What I did was I just used my razor knife to cut it in half, and I'll tell you what, you try and put a piece of tape on a wire that long and you will probably explode trying to do it without having an issue. So what I've been doing is, since the only part of this that really shows in the mod is about from here to here, because it's just going to loop from the motherboard through a hole in the motherboard tray, is I've been putting white tape about from here to there. What you do is you just start by getting it to stick on one edge, and then you just very carefully keep going back and back and back, and you roll it around. And you're going to wonder, okay, does that really make a difference? Well, you can see that looks very, very white. And let's come on down here and take a look at what happens if you don't have the tape. You can really see the difference here. You can really see the difference that white tape makes. Because white is fairly transparent, so if you really want white looking sleeving, you're either going to have to paint the wires, which I didn't want to mess with. That just seemed like that could end up being a real problem as paint flakes off or gets on things. You can replace the wires and put new ends on them, which means you're going to be doing a lot of crimping. You can replace each wire with white wire, or you can use tape. And it takes a lot of time. I've been at this, I guess, about 4 hours now. This is about how far I've gotten, which is certainly better than yesterday, where I spent about 3 hours and got nothing, because I was overdoing the stretching. That was what I found was my real problem, is I was just trying to stretch this sleeve too tight, and you just can't do that. So once I found out the limits of the sleeve and the limits of the adhesion between the heat shrink and the sleeve, and sort of worked it all out, I was able to gauge how much I could pull it. So that was basically the problem. Well, we'll just keep chugging along here. As you can see, like I said, with the Corsair, for some reason they do not even put a wire to this part of the 24 pin. I'm not sure what that's about. And as I was pointing out before, for some reason they split a wire. So it's been a lot of fun, let me tell you. I'm going to keep moving along here, because pretty soon my day will end when the kids come home and I have to become daddy again instead of Cyberdruid. So enjoy. I'll show you the final results when I get there. I'd show you how I do this. Steer it along. let gravity help me a little bit here, because I was trying to do it flat on the table, and it was even harder. Tape would stick to the table, the wire was not able to get straight enough even after a lot of massaging to really get the tape to follow the edge. Basically, once you get it on there, okay, I guess you can see that pretty good, and then you just keep going back over it and just moving it along. You don't want any bags, any wrinkles, you don't want anything to not stick to it, because that'll just look terrible under the sleeve. But I roll it a little bit as I go along. As you can see, I go back and forth on it. Okay, but it does do what I want. And once I get it about halfway around the wire, it gets a lot easier. That initial sticking of trying to get it to stick fairly straight along the wire, you don't want it to spiral around the wire, is the tricky part to me anyway. And then you just keep on going. If you wanted to get super anal about it, once you get the wire coated all the way around and you don't want any extra, because it just makes it thicker, you can trim this last little bit off with a razor knife by putting it on a nice flat surface, and you could cut that little bit off. But I've been finding it's not really making a big difference. That little 1/8 inch of extra material is not really making the wire so much thicker. So as long as I'm consistent and they all have the same amount of tape on them, which is about half of what's on that roll, I'm guessing about 3/8. What would be ideal is if I could get some nice 1/2 inch white tape, which I was not able to locate around here anyway. And you wouldn't have to screw around with cutting it at all. But once you got it on there, you want to make sure that you've got no real bubbles or anything, because that's just going to look ugly. If you do get bubbles, just unstick it and start again. But as you can see, that's the idea. Get it white so that the white sleeving doesn't show the black. Okay?